Hey everybody, welcome to It's in the Cards. Nice to be back alive. Last week I was not able to do a live show because last week at this time I was sitting in a dark, cold house without power because of the massive ice storm. And now it's Wednesday night again and we're all waiting for the next big one. They've closed everything down already, talking 1 to 2 feet of snow in some of the areas. They asked all the out-of-state electric companies that came last week to get the power on, thank you, to stay and not go home because they're going to be needed, they said, because it's going out again. They're already anticipating it. It's going to be starting in about an hour, and it's not stopping until Friday morning, 6 o'clock a.m., 8 a.m., somewhere in there. So this is going to be another doozy. I can't wait till I can come on here and say we're sweating to death. Let me tell you. Valentine's Day is just 2 days away. The deliveries have already gone out starting today too because they know they're not going to be able to get the trucks out. So today we are going to try to warm up a bit for those suffering from these freezing cold snowy temps and do a Valentine's show, and I couldn't ask for a better guest to join me for that this evening. She has been on before, December, I think she was on, and we were discussing her book then. Gina Thies is back. Gina, hi.
Well, we lost her, Misha. I'm trying to get her back.
Okay, I thought maybe I just lost her cam.
Oh, we lost her.
We lost her. Okay. We're gonna have the phone lines open tonight too for some readings since it is Valentine's week, and we decided we wanted to do a Valentine's show. Go over some of those common annoyances to us readers that we get in regards to relationships. Some of the, do's and don'ts and the common stresses and issues out there, and just some helpful advice we can throw out there for you, and a tag team reading for you when we open up phone lines. Hi, Gina. How are you?
I'm great, Misha. How are you?
Terrific. I got the hoodie ready. And the flashlight, the jumbo flashlight.
Oh, my.
And the blankets to do it all over again. There was
my goodness.
Almost 1 million houses last week that went without power. It was like 860 some thousand. Some poor soul. As of this morning, it was all back except for one.
Wow.
Can you imagine, nothing like feeling like you've been forgotten? It isn't funny at all, believe me.
None whatsoever, but I understand the ridiculousness of it all, of course, and we have been having some crazy weather here where I am, where we've gotten our snow and we had our Ice-Mageddon, and now today was like a nice, just kind of early spring day. So, yes.
Yeah.
The extremes of it all.
Yeah, and we can expect up to 2 feet with this one that's coming tonight.
So, for her.
Yeah, this is paybacks for the last 2 to 3 winters. And the other good news, maybe for some, they said on the news this morning, 75% chance this summer, starting in June, we will have the hottest summer ever. Ever.
I have some friends that are in Australia that are complaining about the heat there. They are saying it is because we're opposites. So it is extremely warm there, and we have had an extremely cold winter, and I just am dreading what the summer is going to feel like here in Texas. We can reach those 115 degrees, no problem. So I'm really not looking forward to that. I'm like, oh yeah, you're complaining about the cold now. Wait till that 115-degree temperature hits.
Yeah, well, we lost you. That's what I had said. I'm sick of saying another storm. We're waiting around to lose power again. And, pretty soon, I would love to say we're sweltering. That'll happen before we know it. It doesn't look it that way tonight, though.
Right. Well, hopefully you survive and we can get through this and it lasts long enough so that you do what you need to do. But I know when we rely on power so much now that it's just like, and internet and all of the things we have to do. It's very frustrating to lose that sort of connection. So. So speaking of connections, I thank you for having me back. And
thanks for coming and doing this special show with me.
Yeah, so speaking of connections, we'll be talking about connections of the romantic and intimate sort, those sort of things that we readers are we frequently have to deal with. So I'm excited to talk about that.
Yes. The ins and outs, the annoyances to us, but it's, the client's heartbreaks.
Right, yeah. And, I wouldn't look at it as necessarily an annoyance because I am very, very happy and, to help people through their difficulties.
Yes.
I do realize, though, as practitioners that we often do get difficult or complicated situations and into complicated situations with our querents or the seekers. So those things definitely can be very frustrating and annoying. What have you experienced in terms of those types of difficulties with clients in their readings, and particularly if you want to talk about relationships and connections, that would be great.
Yeah, because I do the phone lines on occasion as well as, from my website and in person and parties and things, it's two different types of experiences that you get. Literally. Online, a lot of the people that you get on the online and the hotline numbers, they're the crazed, in a panic, and they're psychic jumpers. Right. And they jump from one reader to another. Their energy is all over the place to begin with.
Correct.
Because they've been hopping from one to the other. They're doing it because they want to hear a certain thing.
Uh-huh.
And that what they want to hear is the happily ever after.
Correct.
And chances are that's not going to be how it turns out, which is why they're psychic jumping to begin with. So when I say when I mentioned annoyance, it's in that respect, because they don't want to hear the positive, and they don't want to get out of that rut and that depression that they're in and that clinging, and they don't want to hear anything else except, when's he going to divorce her?
Right.
That's all that is in their head. And that's the annoyance part coming from the hotlines aspect.
Yes. Working myself, many years ago worked on a psychic website, and I was in a chat room setting and constantly dealing with that. One of the things that I decided to do is to just understand that the reading is about the person and not about me. That's the number one thing that I've kind of, perimeter that I set. And I was able to look at other readings with the other readings they were getting from other psychics, and I actually had a session where this one psychic jumped, reader, the seeker, jumping from reader to reader, and they were all telling her how wonderful this situation was going to turn out with this particular relationship. And it was very interesting. I've told this story before, but she finally came to me, and I'm starting my reading. And the reading starts out as this really lovely, happy ever after. I'm talking 10 of Cups type of situation. And I don't know if it was just in the process of me being very conscious and aware of the energy, and then what was going on, and looking at, is this something that I'm feeding into because I think she wants to hear it, or what is the truth of the matter here? What is the truth? And I started off telling her, yeah, this is a wonderful situation. I see the future here. I see this, marriage and this whole thing. And then the next sentence out of my mouth was, get the hell away from him. I think he's nothing but a con artist. And if you're not careful, so there was a whole other side that shifted. And I think we're pattern readers. And I think after a while I'm looking at the cards, and it was just like the storyline, what was there and what was coming in, I guess in terms of my intuitive awareness did not match up. So I had to trust my gut, and chose to trust my gut. And unfortunately turned out I was correct. I mean, she was not happy with the reading. And, because all these other readers were telling her that this was the one. This guy was going to be the person she married and spent this happily ever after. And I said, oh, no, you have to get away from him. Well, long story short, as it turns out, the guy robbed her blind, and it did not turn out very, very well. So it's like, now you've got to deal with the person comes back, and you can't say, I told you so, right? Right. However, that isn't what the point of it is. The point was, now where do you move from that moment to getting them on track to something better, and repairing their situation and keeping them whole. So that's the ultimate goal. So the frustration with people do tend to they're seeking. And so one of the things I looked at, and this is coming into my book, which we'll get into, I'm sure, was about not looking at the when, how, who, what's going to happen, but looking at the where are you not now? Why do you keep getting there? And what, if I tell you he's going to call next Tuesday, he or she going to call next Tuesday, how does that keep you from repeating getting where you are? How does that pull you out of where you are? And how can we make this have you in a more conscious relationship? So that's what I started working with my clients with. And so, yeah, you're going to get people that are in a panic most of the time. And I say this all the time. People don't want to get readings unless there is an emergency situation. So right. I know there are many readers that don't, they kind of refrain or not want to deal with people that want like a same day, let me do this now because this has happened type of reading. But I'm pretty thankful and fortunate that I had the training kind of doing these things and working on the psychic sites, that I could actually kind of cut through all of that and relax, because it's like, if I came to you and I'm like, Misha, I got to do this, and now your energy is like, okay, and you can't concentrate, right? It's like, I need to know, and you tell me this whole story, and now it's like the buy-in to that is there is, and my partner over at Oracle Soup in Katrina Wynn, who is a counselor, talks about transference and countertransference. And so you get into this, it's kind of that transference, like you're responsible, you're signing to that whole thing.
Especially when you're empathic on top of it. Right. It gets so overpowering that it's hard to be blocking that off and psychically tuning into what the real problem is.
Yes.
And one of the things that, one of the other extensions of that, when you mentioned about, if I say he's going to call you next week, that's another common question. When am I going to hear from him? And it's always, am I going to hear from him? When?
Yeah.
Well, just because you might doesn't mean it's this fairy tale that you're wanting to hear because that's going to make you feel better. And that's what the bigger problem is. They want comfort over their loss.
Of course.
And the only way they're seeing to get that comfort is by being told, yes, he or she's coming back into the picture. And you have to handle it completely different because you have to get them to understand, like you were saying, what's in their best interests. Why are you doing this? I remember the first reading that this came up for me, and I was in this similar situation that we're talking about. And all of a sudden, in the middle of the reading, I hear loud and clear in my head, because she kept asking, well, when am I going to stop feeling this way? When? But I want them back. I want them back, but I want to stop. And plain as day, you and I talking, I heard in my head one word, and that word was control. Mm-hmm. And I didn't get it at first. Then I'm talking to her, and then it turned around. She says, but I want to, and I said, and it's the truth. With almost all of these situations, if they're at the point they want to get over that hurt that they're going through, when they want control back of their lives,
right,
they will be able to grow positively from this breakup. And she was like, well, what are you talking about? And I'm like, he is gone, but he's still in control. He's controlling you. How many psychics have you been to? How much money have you put out? How often are you not thinking of them? Probably very small.
Well, I'll tell you, what I'll go one better. It's the control, but whenever, and it's a normal thing. Whenever we as humans go through something that's tragic or traumatizing, what we seek is a sense of normalcy. We want that sense of normalcy back ASAP. Nobody wants to feel crappy. We are oftentimes, in terms of especially love, we're having a chemical reaction, and we feel good. We have endorphins. And so when you have a breakup or a disconnect from that, you want to get that feeling back ASAP. So that's, I would say, part of what is going on, and they just want to know when is it going to be normal again. Sometimes this is not just with the same one person. They get into repeated relationships where it's the same thing. You may have clients that call and, okay, well, the one relationship ends, they're on to another, and then they're calling you about, well, what's going on now, with this one, and what's going on, and when this one, and it's like, deja vu all over again. But the seeking part of trying to find someone that makes you feel whole, I mean, that's a normal thing to me. I mean, it's like we all want that sense. We're social creatures, and we want to have someone when nobody wants to be alone. Very few people, I should say, choose to be alone. And so I think that is one of the many reasons why, as readers, we see so many relationship or just any human interaction that are dealing with social and love and matters of the heart. I think that's why it's up there and part of why we see these things that occur. But yes, it's all about the sense of normalcy, how to replace that in their lives. And so that's why going back to, I think it's very, very important to address exactly why they call. So if it's about timing, I have never shied away from of doing predictive or timing readings, but I try to take it a step further. And I think as readers, it's about setting the perimeters and expectations and having the client understand what you can and cannot do, or the purpose of what you do as a reader. And so if you're using the term psychic, that to some people, that it carries a broad range of meanings. So the important thing is to be very, very careful in how you describe what your gifts are. So I could go on and on. That's one of those. I can get on a soapbox about that and talk about terms and stuff and what we call ourselves all day long. But it's very, very important to to be careful of the terms that you use and call yourself, and know that those come with certain things that people are going to want to know. So nothing wrong with doing timing, nothing wrong with answering the question. But then you have to look at what's that going to cause in terms of them not releasing or moving forward from, he's going to call on Tuesday. So,
right.
And I think
I've used that example before, Gina, actually, because people don't get sometimes what we mean by that when I've tried to explain it. And the example that I give is, what if I tell you in 3 months, you're going to, you need 3 months to rejuvenate yourself, take a rest, be by yourself, heal. And then in 3 months, you're going to meet somebody that's going to get your interest that you can start up again with. They're going to sit there and go February, March, April, May. Okay, so I'm not going to do any of the party invites. I'm not going to do the work social get-togethers. I'm not going to do girls' night out until we hit April or whatever month you're saying it is. And then they come back to you and say, well, I didn't meet nobody. I don't know what you were talking about. Well, where did you go? Where were you interacting? What habits did you... Nothing. I stayed home. You told me April, so I said, well, that's why you didn't meet them. Maybe that party from 3 weeks ago that you declined was where you were going to catch somebody's attention. And maybe that little sitting around the party, chit-chatting, was what was going to lead into something, but you chose to sit home and continue to be alone. And that's part of the being careful. And is it going to hinder the person? Because they rely on these time frames. And we're going to end up babbling and not open the phone line. So I want to do that. Get that opened.
They're already open.
Right too.
They're already open, Misha.
They are opened? Okay. So call in if you'd like a tag team Valentine read, or have any other type of question for a reading, or have a question for me or Gina. Give us a call.
We are ready. Absolutely, yes. The timing is one of those things. Timing is in the cards. So, it's like sometimes if they want a definite time frame. I mean, again, this is about setting parameters around what will be pinpointed. And you have to understand that anything they do from the point where the reading closes can change, that time frame.
Right.
And can change any of the outcome. I mean, I always say you're still in the driver's seat. No matter what this reading says, you are in control of your life. It does not override free will or free choice or anything at all. This is just a snapshot of the possibilities. And I love to think of readings as possibilities rather than predictions. So, those possibilities lie, and they have to understand if they're on path 1, but they decide to veer off to path 3, that, the possibilities are going to continue to change. So, it's all very, very interesting, and it is a true art form. I think I heard the terminology a little while ago, divination artist. It is an art form to be able to read and finesse the different things that we can pick up in the cards and any of the divination tools. Very, very much so.
And yet, a lot of times, do you run into this, Gina, or do you think it's more, again, of a, the hotline thing? They overlook the true issue and what the true problem was. The underlining, you can go on and on and on saying, yeah, it's the fight we had last night over the bill or whatever it might be. But there's always a deeper underlining issue that is the reason why. If there's, suspicion, is he or she cheating? Well, there's a reason for the person to be asking. There's, possibly it happened in the past, so we're dealing with a trust issue here, which sometimes those types of issues is more important than what is going on or not going on.
Right, absolutely. In terms of underlying issues, I've spent a lot of time, and this was the result of Tarot Coupling, my book, looking at how to get to underlying issues. Because as doing the hotlines and doing the repetitive readings, I knew tarot offered more, and I wanted to go deeper and take my clients deeper. And so, looking at relationships issues specifically, I started looking at it even from my own, just looking at, well, why do we choose who we choose? What's going on? Why do we fight? Why do we sabotage relationships? A lot of that stuff is pure sabotage, and even though it's set up that way. It's almost like we have models. We have relationship models. And some of our relationship models are not ideal. It's not that they're wrong. It's just that they're not ideal. And so we have to work with that. And sometimes we fall into situations that we're comfortable with. We know these things because it's very, very subconscious. So these models have been placed there, and we kind of choose that. And sometimes when you look at your primary caretaker's relationship, you will sometimes see that reflected in your own relationship patterns. And sometimes when you say, oh my God, I dated a guy who reminded me so much of my father or my grandfather or my uncle, whoever was the primary in terms of male, there's a reason for that. And there's a reason why you may choose someone that either sometimes looks similar, they behave similar, and you're thinking, oh, they're just like that. Either that's something you want or you may not want, but it happens because there's a model that's there.
Right. We have a bunch of questions that have come up in the chat room.
Okay.
Let me go back. I'm going to do them in order. They're asking for yourself, are you an intuitive reader or definition style reader?
I did that. I said, I don't use definitions. I have been reading. Thank you for the question. I've been reading tarot for such a long time that I don't use definitions in terms of a mechanical reading. I only do that if it's necessary to explain something that comes up. But I consider myself more of an intuitive reader. The cards are just there as a just to kind of be there for the unconscious symbols. And so I try to put together the story based on what the cards show, but it's an intuitive process.
You and I have the same style of reading,
Right?
and the same, not necessarily, in the same way, but we approach our reads that we do in the same light. We're not there to just necessarily answer their question. We're there to help them, guide them.
Right. In other words,
see that they're positive.
The cards,
and how to get there.
The cards become like a little mirrors that open up. It's kind of like a field of kind of energy and the symbols that are there, and each card has so many symbols. So these things are all there to kind of jog. You're dealing with the unconscious and things that come up. So that's kind of where it all comes. So if you replace the cards with something else or your own pictures, same results would happen. So in other words, tarot, because it has all of these perfect images and archetypes, they're already there. So, but if I scribbled, I could do the same thing. I mean, I think readers have their tools of choice and use those things differently. I prefer to work with the intuitive, more psychic gifts. I guess the best way to describe that.
We have another question, and that is, do we tend to find ourselves doing therapy rather than reading at times? And we discussed that a little bit. We touched on it the last time you were on. There's a fine line with doing that. Yes, we are there in a council, and I'm going like this because if you're not a licensed counselor or have your degree, you're not. There's rules there. There's boundaries. There's a tightrope that has to be walked in regards to that. Correct. But so to answer that is kind of
that's a very good question, and my Oracle Soup sister Katrina Wynn and I talk about this constantly on our little podcast, Oracle Soup. And you have to understand that if you're not a licensed therapist, then you don't really want to use therapists as part of what you do. Now, many people now, rather than say they are psychics or do divination, say that their readings they have a therapeutic reading style. And that's not to say they're calling themselves therapists, but what it means is that they are there as a facilitator to help you kind of look at your situation. And much like a therapist, it's not about telling you what you're going to do. And I definitely tell people I am not telling you what to do, but it's about facilitating an area where you can have a person to either bounce off your own introspection or help you through the process of your own self introspection. So in terms of therapy, I have very much done therapeutic readings, or a person has maybe commented that they felt like it was very therapeutic for them. But I'm not a licensed therapist. I am strictly more, I would say I'm more along a spiritual advisor, and more of a straight up reader, when you say a reader, that's a connotation that there is a special skill set and a special talent that you have or a special insight. But many therapists and counselors do have very, very intuitive insights as well. And so, again, the fine line there is that I can't say that I'm doing therapy because I'm not licensed to do therapy.
Exactly. And I like that description for it, because you're always hearing, spiritual advisor, because it's, always described as like, going to your girlfriend for some guidance and advice. Right. I like your description a lot better.
I see, and I hope that answers the question in terms of, the therapy rather than the reading. I do see another question I'm seeing in the chat now, and looks like someone has a question that says, you really want to know why your relationship isn't working? Okay. That would be, it's like, more specifically, there's a general answer, but if you need to look at your stuff, we could do a reading about it, something, to kind of get you more specific. But why do most relationships not work? There's a saying is there's a reason why it's called work. Most relationships, we have a lot of dysfunction all over the place. And that's not to say there's anything wrong with any of us. It's just that we have to get accustomed to learning how to accommodate certain things in relationships and not accommodate. And learning about ourselves. The best thing you could ever do is understand your attachment style, which is one of the things that I talk about in tarot coupling. Learn how you're attached. It's like, are you a clingy person or are you someone that pushes people away? And there may be a reason for that. Now, it's not to say, and I'm glad you're giving me an opportunity to talk. It's not to say that everything that has ever gone wrong in our lives and in our relationships are the fault of the people that have raised us. Not saying that, because at some point, we are in the driver's seat. But what it's about is recognizing where our pitfalls are, our personal pitfalls, and our tolerance levels, and those periods of growth. You are in relationships. You are trying to make yourself whole. That's why you choose a partner. And so things don't always mesh and go smoothly. I mean, there's not necessarily a perfect relationship. There are bumps and bruises in all kinds of relationships. But the key to it is to find out where you can kind of keep it on an even keel, and deciding that you want to absolutely do the work. I've been married almost 15 years, and this is my third time around. And trust me, I did not want to keep getting on that, wheel and not getting something accomplished. And it hasn't always been easy, but I did decide to actually hold up that mirror. And that's what tarot cards are for me. They're like little mirrors. You have to look at yourself and go, okay, I recognize that that's not a pretty thing. And so, but it's not it's not to say that it's a bad thing. I was talking to someone the other day, and they were like, oh, you're in a bad mood, just think happy. I said, you know what? There's nothing wrong with being in a bad mood. We're humans, and we can accommodate bad moods. The thing is to coach through that bad mood, to transition it into something better, not to just ignore it. Stop ignoring that you have bad feelings. And a lot of times it is about the bad stuff that we don't want to look at in ourselves. It manifests itself somehow in our partners, or we tend to, project it onto our partners. And then, so it's like you're making the partner the problem, but it's really look closer to home. And that's within, if that makes sense. So that's just kind of like a general thing and not specific to the person that asked the question. But I hope that helps kind of paint the picture for you a little bit. Wow, that's a great question.
Yes. I lost track here. Therapy, we did that one. We did that one. How do you feel about having to say that what you do is for entertainment purposes only? I
Well,
think it sucks. To be blunt.
you know what? I've learned to understand that for me, what I do, and trust me, I've had to go through, I've gone through the witch trials at some point in one of my lives, and I've had to deal with people not agreeing with what I do. I think that it is a form of entertainment, and I respect that it's a form of entertainment. And I think there's nothing wrong with saying this is a form of entertainment, because you know what? Most of the times when we're reading, when someone pays me for my services, I get it to the level of, they are respecting what I do, and they understand that I've spent time, money, energy learning this art. And so to say that, in terms of the legalese, to say it's for entertainment purposes only, I've moved past that. It doesn't bother me in terms of legalese, but in terms of I am there to entertain a person. I am there to show them something other, than the path that they're on. And so, in a sense, I can't say that I'm a licensed psychologist or therapist. So, it doesn't bother me, but I know that also my clientele and the clientele that I've built, a lot of people do not take this as entertainment. So that's who I'm out to attract. So it's almost like, when somebody wants a free reading, they're probably considering it entertainment. So I don't do, it's like I don't want to attract those people. I want to attract the people that take it serious. But anybody else that wants to call it for entertainment purposes only, that's fine with me. I've got a thick hide. It doesn't bother me at all.
We have to do it here in Pennsylvania. We have to have it stated. And what I ended up doing on, my posters or flyers, I have it, down at the bottom because it has to be there someplace. But what I did was I worded it that, like I explained, we all have free will. I am obligated by law to state for entertainment purposes only, but you have the free will to decide if it is or it isn't.
My first and foremost thing is that I want to follow the law. So if it's the law, let's just do what the law is. Everything else, it says nothing about what I do and who I am. And, I'm not really out to prove a whole lot in terms of my gifts. I just tell people you have the experience. And occasionally I do, I have to go, for entertainment purposes only. There's disclaimers, and but I just try to stay ethical. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, I have a friend of mine actually that we ended up in this discussion for entertainment purposes only, and he turned around, and you know what his answer was? When his response to that is when priests and pastors put on their door to the church for entertainment purposes only, then he will do it as well. Because his rationale is they're really not changing the bread and the wine into the blood and body of Christ.
Right.
So he was he always uses that comparison for that entertainment purposes only thing. When they have to do it, then he says,
here's the thing: entertainment. It's like, what is define entertainment? So. Right. There you go. So if it needs to say that, and a person is, I'm entertaining, I'm a hoot. So at least I think I am. So, you'll be entertained. But, I have You know, it's more important to stay ethical and within the law. And anybody that experiences a reading and comes back for a reading means that something was there for them. They got something out of it, even if it was to be entertained. And when I do parties, I am there for entertainment. So I don't think that it takes away anything from the purpose of the cards. I'm not, I do have a sense of humor about the whole thing. But I think it's funny when people get really hung up on, the cards. The cards are a game. Tarot is a game. People need to remember that. It really is a game. So, first and foremost, you should have fun with it. It helps your gifting along as well. I do see another question.
Yes. What is your favorite deck and why?
Okay. Well, my favorite deck, my absolute favorite go-to deck is called Tarot of Dreams by Ciro Marchetti. It is my go-to deck and has been. I bought the special edition of his deck because it was larger than your normal deck size. Something about, and I told Ciro Marchetti this when I saw him, his decks to me are what, it's like if I didn't know anything about a tarot deck, to me it just looks like there should be what tarot decks look like. I love, I just resonate with the images. The queens in this deck is particularly, when I use them for my clients, they just are fascinated with the queens. So I think it's just with the size and the images, and there's a story there, and he's done beautiful work. So it's my go-to deck. My other deck of his that I love is the Gilded Tarot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Gilded Tarot, one of my other favorite decks, and hopefully at some point my other favorite deck will be my own deck that I'm working on. I've been very, very busy painting these few past months, working on a deck and a story that I want to tell about the Moors of Spain and the connection to tarot. And so I've been doing some research, and so I'm having fun and have gotten some pretty good feedback. So I'll be looking forward to posting some of those images soon. So yeah.
That's exciting. And then I'll have you back, of course, for that.
Yes.
And in between, as it's developing, and you can share things. Do some teasers.
Yes, I will start doing some teasers. Absolutely. So there is another question I see, but in that, have I ever ended a reading prematurely? Well, I am such a talker, and I consider myself very thorough, and I have maybe left a person feeling like they wanted more. I mean, they always want more. They want to sit there and listen to everything that comes out. But the most important thing, again, I think the reading is about the seeker. So I always ask if there are any questions. I typically don't work with questions because I want to see what's there. A lot of times those questions are answered. And I always say, you have questions, hold them until I get through a certain part of the readings, and then I let them fire away. So I make sure they try to get the most out of their time with me, because I know that I don't want to waste anybody's time. I wouldn't want anybody to waste my time. So I try to make sure that the reading is well-rounded. And if there's something that can't be covered at the time, or, there's something else they'd like to explore, my time is only limited. And so I try to give homework. And so again, it's a two-way process. And the reading is for the person. They should be getting more out of it. So if they feel like it, so to answer the question in the short form is no, I don't feel like I've ever ended a reading prematurely.
And onto that is somebody's in the chat room mentioning that they never know what to ask most of the times, and that goes along with what you said, and I'm basically the same way as well. I always basically like to start out with no info, no general. And, most people are in that same similar situation. You have so much garbage going on in your life. To narrow it down to one question or which one's the most important, let the cards do it. It's all in the cards. The most important problem, the most there,
as
because
a fact, what I usually do, because people, I know this happens, there's so many things you want to know, and most of the time it's not just one thing. It is one thing, but I want the cards to find what that one thing is. So guess what? I just use the 4 suits to pinpoint what we're going to have a focus on, because you may have a question, but it's like, oh, how do you phrase the question? And, how do you narrow it down? Well, that's too much work. And I just let the cards tell me what we're going to talk about and what you're going to cover. And most of, I tell you, it's been 99% fail proof, because it's like, there's something you want to talk about. There's something that's burning, but let's, and it helps move away from that. Kind of move away from, I just got to know when is he going to call? And
it gets to the core issue. I had somebody, I was doing face-to-face readings, and somebody actually said to me, oh my God, you're like an x-ray machine. Because they were just like, that's what I've been feeling. And thinking that the main issue is, but it ends up a domino effect. If you're having an issue at home, you're going to work, you're going about your business, you think you've left the issue at home, but it's floating around, and that core issue is causing, for the most part, usually in most cases, it's the reason for all the other chaos that's going on in your life, and you don't even realize it. So
I've done that too. I've done readings where a person has come to me where they thought it was about one specific issue, and it was about something far more, much more important than their issue, which to them is not to negate the fact that it wasn't, but it was like, no, you really need to pay attention. Really need to pay attention to this particular situation, and that other thing that is causing you so much trauma right now. Yeah, it's compared to this. It's going to be. So I let the cards, they are there as guides. There is another question about do I read reversals, and the thoughts on the whole reverse concept. I do.
You only have 2.5 minutes, and I have to close out the show and say a goodbye. So that's going to end up having to actually be for next time, unless you can do it in 30 seconds.
Yeah, I do read reversals. I think that it's just another way to use your tools. It's just like, switching from a paintbrush to a pencil, but you're still working on a painting.
Right. And you're getting, so many questions. Both shows we've had to cut short. It's been mentioned about you having a show here with us. And then you do your promoting and everything else. So maybe you want to see if you can fit that into your schedule.
Let's see. Is there a 48-hour day?
I know, right? And you can reach Gina at your website quick.
It is taroadvisor.com, TAROTADVISOR.com. Also, I have a Facebook group that is Tarot Coupling, www.facebook. Oh my God. Facebook.com/Tarot Coupling. And I also have oraclesoup.org, where you can listen into my podcast. And where else? Oh, and the Tarot School newsletter. So go to the tarotschool.com and sign up for the newsletter, and you'll hear me. I'm kind of writing and musings and working on the cards. And I work with Walden, Ruth Ann Amberstone. So yeah, lots of ways to contact me. and thank you for the question.
And you can get a hold of me at tarotbymisha.com. I have Tarot by Misha on Facebook. And to keep up to date with the shows, it's in the cards, can be found on Facebook. So just look us up that way, and you'll be up to date on the guests and the upcoming shows. And on that note, we gotta go.
All
Thanks
right.
so much, Gina.
Okay, it was great seeing you again, too. We'll be in touch.
Hey everybody, welcome to It's in the Cards. Nice to be back alive. Last week I was not able to do a live show because last week at this time I was sitting in a dark, cold house without power because of the massive ice storm. And now it's Wednesday night again, and Gina, hi.
Well, we lost her, Misha. I'm trying to get her back.
Okay, I thought maybe I just lost her cam.
Oh, we lost her.
We lost her. Okay. We're gonna have the phone lines open tonight too for some readings, since it is Valentine's week, and we decided we wanted to do a Valentine's show. Go over some of those common annoyances to us readers that we get in regards to relationships. Some of the do's and don'ts, and the common stresses and issues out there, and just some helpful advice we can throw out there for you, and a tag team reading for you when we open up phone lines. Hi, Gina. How are you?
I'm great, Misha. How are you?
Terrific. I got the hoodie ready. And the flashlight, the jumbo flashlight.
Oh, my.
And the blankets to do it all over again. There was
my goodness.
almost 1 million houses last week that went without power. It was like 860 some thousand. Some poor soul. As of this morning, it was all back except for one.
Wow.
Can you imagine, nothing like feeling like you've been forgotten? It isn't funny. That'll happen before we know it. It doesn't look it that way tonight, though.
Right. Well, hopefully you survive and we can get through this and it lasts long enough so that you do what you need to do. But I know when we rely on the power so much now that it's just like, and the internet and all of the things we have to do. It's very frustrating to lose that sort of connection. So yeah. So speaking of connections, I thank you for having me back. And
Thanks for coming and doing this special show with me.
yeah, so speaking of connections, we'll be talking about connections of the romantic and intimate sort. Those sort of things that we readers are we frequently have to deal with. So I'm excited to talk about that.
Yes, yes. The ins and outs, the annoyances to us, but it's, the client's heartbreaks.
Right. Yeah. And, I wouldn't look at it as necessarily an annoyance because I am very, very happy and, to help people through their difficulties.
Yes.
I do realize, though, as practitioners, that we often do get difficult or complicated situations and into complicated situations with our querents or the seeker. So those things definitely can be very frustrating and annoying. What have you experienced in terms of those types of difficulties with clients and their readings, and particularly if you want to talk about relationships and connections, that would be great.
At all, believe me.
None whatsoever, but I understand the ridiculousness of it all, of course, and we have been having some crazy weather here where I am, where we've gotten our snow and we had our ice-mageddon, and now today was like a nice, just kind of early spring day. So, yes.
Yeah.
The extremes of it all.
Yeah, and we can expect up to 2 feet with this one that's coming tonight. So,
For her.
yeah, this is paybacks for the last 2 to 3 winters. And the other good news, maybe for some, they said on the news this morning, 75% chance this summer, starting in June, we will have the hottest summer ever. Ever.
I have some friends that are in Australia that are complaining about the heat there. They are saying it is because we're opposites. So it is extremely warm there, and we have had an extremely cold winter, and I just am dreading what the summer is going to feel like here in Texas. We can reach those 115 degrees, no problem. So I'm really not looking forward to that. I'm like, oh yeah, you're complaining about the cold now. Wait till that 115-degree temperature hits.
Yeah, well, we lost you. That's what I had said. I'm sick of saying another storm. We're waiting around to lose power again. And, pretty soon, I would love to say we're sweltering. We're all waiting for the next big one. They've closed everything down already. Talking 1 to 2 feet of snow in some of the areas. They asked all the out-of-state electric companies that came last week to get the power on, thank you, to stay and not go home because they're going to be needed, they said, because it's going out again. They're already anticipating it. It's going to be starting in about an hour, and it's not stopping until Friday morning, 6 o'clock a.m., 8 a.m., somewhere in there. So this is going to be another doozy. I can't wait till I can come on here and say we're sweating to death. Let me tell you. Valentine's Day is just 2 days away. The deliveries have already gone out starting today too because they know they're not going to be able to get the trucks out So today we are going to try to warm up a bit for those suffering from these freezing cold, snowy temps and do a Valentine's show. And I couldn't ask for a better guest to join me for that this evening. She has been on before. December, I think she was on, and we were discussing her book then. Gina Thies is back.